Hi, welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar for March 2026. So we're making a change to the product that we are going to talk about today. In fact, there's several things that we'll be talking about today. So let's start off with overviewing what's coming up. Appruvia AI. We've changed the name from Pathfinder to Appruvia AI. That has some effects on the product UI, and we'll talk about that. We have several enhancements, including one that I actually think is pretty cool and long overdue for an update. And then we have some bug fixes that we'll close out talking about. But first, let's talk about Pathfinder. We have renamed Pathfinder to Appruvia AI. This is a rebranding that you're probably going to see more of as the year goes on, but for right now, Pathfinder is now Appruvia AI. Now, this is going to change the product UI. So the process director Appruvia AI variables, what used to be called the Pathfinder variables, is now called the Appruvia AI variable. So we're going to see that over and over in the product. Indeed, if we take a look at a form, the Pathfinder form control that we had placed into the product recently for 6.1.500. I'm not sure why my system is so slow now. We're still waiting for this page to load for some reason, but I need to show you the control. There we go. Now we can get into the online form designer, hopefully. And the Pathfinder form control. Okay. This all worked real fine just a few minutes ago. Under the other controls, the Pathfinder form control is now called the Appruvia AI control. We've also made some changes to the Appruvia AI control. We're going to come back and talk about some of those as well. But as you can see here, it now says Appruvia AI. The documentation will also change. So today, if you go look at the documentation, all of the Pathfinder stuff has now been renamed to Appruvia AI, new screenshots for everything, and so forth. So some improvements that we have made to the control now known as Appruvia AI. You don't actually need the chatbot interface to make the Appruvia AI control work anymore. There is a new property called auto prompt, this property right here. And what this will allow you to do is create a prompt that will run automatically when the control is invoked. Now, for the most part, this will work with the intake feature, which we talked about last month. There is now a new checkbox here that says Open Chat UI. Now, by default, this is turned on. And so if you click the Appruvia AI button, it will open up the chatbot window. But you don't have to. By using auto prompt and unchecking Open Chat UI, you can simply, whenever somebody clicks the Appruvia AI button, you can automatically, assuming that you have a document that you upload, you can automatically run through the intake process. And the intake process is important because, as we talked about last month, you have the ability to actually use prompts to extract data from any document that you upload and fill out the form with that data. The AI will just go and retrieve the information from the uploaded document. We'll place it into form fields. So now this can all happen automatically without having to mess with the UI at all. The end user doesn't even have to see it. They just click the button and the intake process automatically begins based on the prompt that you've given it and without showing them the chatbot UI if you don't want to show them to you. Because you can do that automatically with an auto prompt, we've had to redo error messaging so that if you misconfigure it, we have to give you appropriate and helpful error messages that tell you what configuration mistakes you have made and the reason why the automatic intake can't occur, so that we can help you to go back and reconfigure the control to erase those errors. So we've created specific error messaging around the ability to run the auto prompt without the chatbot pane, have everything happen in the background. But of course, when you do it that way, everything is a black box, right? You can't actually see what's going on unless you get some error messages that tell you things are not working the way that you intended. So that's what we've done there. Multiple group assignments. That is the other thing that we didn't have last month that I do want to show you. There is now a source group and an output group. So if you have multiple attachment controls, which presumably you would have multiple attachment groups on your form, you can specify the attachment group from which to grab the attachment data that you want to summarize or use for intake. And then there is an output group that you can send the output to. Like if you create a single page summary, you can send that to a specific output group. Also, we have added document format, Word document format, to the output. So prior to now, it was all PDF output, but now you have the choice of sending it to either PDF or a document. Often the document is a much better choice, especially if you're expected to edit it or whatnot once you get it. That's difficult to do with a PDF, trivial to do with a Word document. The chat control itself. Well, before I show you that, let's talk about the one last thing. A lot of times when you get PDFs, you sort of expect PDF documents that are full of text to actually be full of text, right? You can open up a PDF, a lot of times, and you can, highlight text and copy it and paste it. It's kind of wonky the way that works in PDF because there are no line breaks or anything. So it's a little bit of a pain whenever you use it. However, not all PDFs are like that. Sometimes people just scan documents in, and what you end up with is an image-only PDF. In other words, the PDF file are pictures of a bunch of pages. So we've implemented OCR, optical character recognition, so that Apruvia AI can actually look at those PDF or those image-only PDFs and can just optically read the text in the image, parse that text, and be able to ingest it as if it were regular text. Now, it is OCR. OCR is not perfect. Depending on the quality of the image, there may be mistakes in what some of the words say. Some of the letters may be wrong. OCR still is not a perfect technology, and it's highly dependent on the image being of high enough resolution that the characters are relatively easy to distinguish. So that's just a perennial problem with OCR. That aside, though, it gets us getting 96% of the text correct is a big jump from getting none of the text correct. You can also now export your chat history. So that's a big deal here. Let's actually open up this this form instance that I've already got built here and running. And we'll open up the chatbot here. As you can see, it is now called Apruvia AI instead of Pathfinder. But there are a couple of extra icons up here, one of which, although there's nothing in there right now. So let's see, what is Process Director? Let's actually have a conversation. And we'll ask it that question. What is Process Director? And I'm in summarize mode. So it doesn't know because it is looking at this document, and this document doesn't mention Process Director. So this is not the standard mode. So the answer is going to be wrong here. However, I have asked a question. I now have chat history, and I have a little button here that when I click will export the chat history directly out of Process Director onto your local computer. It does get exported in JSON format, so you do need to keep that in mind that it will be JSON. And then here we have the ability to start a new chat. If I start a normal, now if I start a normal chat, can I ask it what is Process Director? Oh, I don't know if I can on this server. I think I can. Um, I know I can. I don't know that I'm actually even hooked up to AI. No, this is documentation. I should be hooked up. This is a dev build, so this should work. So it's thinking about what Process Director is, and sooner or later it should be able to give me my answer. At least it did yesterday when I was updating all the documentation and taking screenshots. There we go. That's what Process Director is. Gives us an idea of what the training is and blah, 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 blah. And if I want to start a new chat, I can do that. Also, I've got the ability to expand and collapse the chatbot window and, of course, close the chatbot window. So those are the big changes to Apruvia AI, what we formerly called Pathfinder. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about some of the other enhancements that we have placed into the product. Number one, the show attach control. Now, we just saw it right here. Look at that. That is a different version of the show attach control. Well, actually, that's not true. It's exactly the same version of the show attach control, but we've tweaked the show attach control to make it a little more attractive if you want, because now there are some extra properties that are available for configuration for the show attach control. So if I go ahead and click on it right here and I open up the controls properties, if I go over here to attach properties, we've made some changes. First thing we've done is we have created this new action section. So what we've done is we have moved these check boxes here down from where they used to be up here in the very top when they were all just part of this big mass of check boxes up there. We've now created a new section called Actions. Now, by default, it will just show you the links. And this will look exactly as it appears right here. This is the old style view, and it is the default view for the attach control or the show attach control. However, we now have the ability to change that, as we just saw a few minutes ago, to buttons. It gives us a new, much more modern look. Moreover, when you set it to buttons, one thing I should mention, whether you have it set to buttons or links, it doesn't matter. You have the ability to do a lot more editing. Obviously, the checkboxes are still here, so you can still show and hide certain options if you want. But you now have the ability, even if you use the links, to change the text that is displayed for the link, which you could never do before. So in this case, I have show view checked. The ones that are unchecked, of course, are all grayed out, so they're disabled. But show view is checked. The default text is view, has been for years, but you can now change that text. Now, when you switch to buttons, you get this collapsible interface. So you get these little icons over here to expand and collapse the items. So for my show view, if I switch it to buttons, not only can I now change the text that gets displayed, but I have the ability to set icons, colors, back colors, color radius, to turn on or off the 3D effect for the box shadow. So I have all of the standard button controls for changing the look and feel of the buttons that inside the show attach control that I have with the normal button or button area controls. And in fact, all of the button controls now have all of these properties here. So you can now get a much more granular look of, or a much more granular level of control over how the show attach works. And as we just saw just a second ago, even if we don't configure anything, and I haven't configured anything, I still get a relatively attractive look at this document attachment, and I get nice buttons here. And obviously, one of the things that we ran into as we're using the show attach control for a lot of other projects, is that it's kind of small, kind of hard to read, and there was no way to make the links noticeable. They just existed as links. And so we added this so that if I wanted to make the view button bright yellow to catch somebody's attention, I could certainly do that now and throw in an icon and all of the other things that I might want to do to change the look and feel of that control. So a lot of changes for the show attach control to make it much more attractive. On the data list control, now this is not something I can show you. I suppose I could, but it would take a lot of time to do so because I'd have to set it up and I'd have to edit a business value. But essentially, the issue is this. In the data list control, if you went to the underlying data source and you changed some of the columns in the underlying data source and saved it, you would have to go back to the form, open up the form, open the data list control, and you would have to reconfigure the columns that you wanted shown or hidden or what have you, because because basically it would treat it as if you had created a brand new data list. And so you'd have to go in and reconfigure the columns inside your data list control. Now you don't have to do that. Your column settings are retained. So if you do go back and change the underlying business value, for example, you added a new column or you removed some columns, we will handle the new or removed columns, but we will not change the configuration of any of the existing columns. That seems to be what everybody wants. That seems to be the behavior they want. I certainly recognize why it might be convenient, but I can also see where it would have its own problems. It's one of those things in the product that there's no real right or wrong way to do things, and there's no way to satisfy the way everybody would like it to work, because there are advantages and disadvantages to each way that you might handle a particular situation. In this case, we've decided that it's probably better to make the columns in your data list control as persistent as we can and to err on configuration issues that arise from that sort of persistency rather than you change a business value, because that's the problem, right? If I have a business value and I've got 10 forms that use that business value in a data list, once I go in and edit the configuration of that business value, now I've got to go back in and edit 10 other forms, which is super inconvenient. So this would solve that problem. Again, there may be other problems associated with persistence. Neither redoing all the columns or trying to keep all the columns is a panacea. On balance, we think persistent data list columns at this point is the better choice. If you don't like it and a bunch of you yell at us and say change it back, we'll probably change it back if that is what people want. But for now, we think this is a better solution. Convert to PDF task has been updated for a couple of reasons. Certainly, there have been some changes to the third-party library that we use to do the PDF that needed to be updated. There was also a problem with that third-party library when dealing with Word documents that had track changes turned on. It would get kind of lost and would just read the document as corrupt and refuse to convert it to PDF. So we had to make some changes to update the convert to PDF custom task. So that has been updated to a new version. I don't think that it's available on the download site just yet because we just fixed this, but it will be available very soon. So you can grab a new version of the custom tasks and download them. Logging improvements. We've done a couple of different logging improvements, one of which was requested by customers, which is that whenever something is invoked by like a form instance, they would kind of like to know what the parent object is. This is especially true if you're dealing with things like conditions. And so we were storing the condition ID or the condition set ID whenever it invoked an error, like a condition couldn't be evaluated, so it invokes an error. Or you happen to delete a condition set and the condition set is missing and there's a reference to it somewhere and says, hey, we're missing condition set ID. Okay, that's great. If only I knew what the condition set ID was for a condition that I created on a form. If only I knew what that was or where it was located. So what we started to do is in the logging is to add the parent object ID whenever we have these kind of chained objects. So what should happen is if you have one of those problems where your condition set ID is either not found or there's a problem with it, because you run into that like you have a form that calls that calls a custom task and the custom task goes wonky. Well, what you get is the ID of that custom task instance. Okay, great. Where is that? I have no way of looking that up. Now we do, because what we would do, of course, if that condition set or custom task instance went awry, we would now add the form instance ID. So we could go find that form instance. The form instance I can find. Timeline and form instances, those are trivial to find. Condition set instance IDs, yeah, there's no way to easily find those. So that will make system troubleshooting a lot easier. And when something goes wrong, the logs will now tell you what the parent ID is so that you can go find that object, because that's often way more useful than the ID of just the object that caused an error. The responsive layout controls are changing a bit. We are addressing some issues with the responsive layout controls, one of which somebody pointed out is that we had a nav bar control on the responsive layout. Now, I don't have an update that has those responsive layout controls, the new ones, because we've made 3 changes that I can't demo to you today. But the problem that one of our customers had is they went in here and they said, oh, okay, well, let's drop a nav bar on the form. Okay, great. What are we going to put in the nav bar? Well, nothing, because there's no control that fits in the nav bar. So one of the controls that we added was a nav item control so that we could actually put a nav item in the nav bar. So we are making some changes to this. We are readdressing the responsive layout controls. We have a number of customers that use them. One customer has started to use them extensively. And so we've been discussing some changes with them that would just make the responsive layout control better for everybody. And then the tab strip control. Again, it's something I wish I could demonstrate to you. I can't at this point, but the tab strip control is it kind of just sort of prints as is on your form. And so what we've done is down here, and like I said, I don't have a version that has it built in yet. It hasn't been stuck into a branch yet. So I updated yesterday to get all the Apruvia AI stuff, but these individual control things aren't in it yet. But down here for the tabs, you will now have the option of selecting what tabs you want to print or what tabs you absolutely do not want to print whenever you are running a tabbed interface form in Process Director. So you've got more fine-grained control over what prints on a tabbed form, and you can add or exclude the tabs that you want to print. All right, let's talk about bug fixes. There's several of them. The most important of which is not our fault. It's Microsoft's fault, as well, many things over the past 6 months appear to be. Microsoft decided they were going to change the way SAML works because, why should we follow the standards that everyone else in the industry uses? Why? We're Microsoft. So they've changed the way that Intra ID handles SAML authentication, and they kind of just did it And so we are dealing with the fallout for them just doing stuff in Intra ID. So we've had to update SAML authentication the way that it works so that we can handle the change that Microsoft decided to just toss into Intra ID. Some Oracle issues. Most people use SQL Server in the background as the backend database, but we do have a couple of customers that use Oracle. Generally, things work, but sometimes little Oracle issues sneak through. This is one of those issues. Whenever you have a form SQL view on a form and you export the form and then you re-import it on another system, as you may remember, we updated the system to bring those SQL views over as part of the import. And it works fine for SQL Server. Not so fine for Oracle. There was some weird little Oracle syntax deal, but we had to fix that. There is a question, so I should stop. What build will these fixes be in, and is there an ETA? These fixes is not specific enough for me to know what you're talking about. So I'm not sure what you mean by these fixes. What I can say is that the fixes I am talking about today have already been completed. So the Jira tickets are closed. And so in the next version of Process Director, they'll be included in that version. I think we are working on a patch of 5.2, which I thought was supposed to go out this week. I kind of lost visibility on that, but I'm sure I'll pick that up this afternoon when we go into our backlog grooming session. But what is actually going to be in that, I don't even know yet because I haven't received a list of the Jira tickets that are going to be in .502, so I'm not sure. But all of these things have already been completed, so in the next release, probably not .502, but in the release after that, they'll be in there. Some issues with calendar K views that were fixed. The instance date, that was a weird one. The instance created. Usually it's not a problem. You open a form, you submit it, and it's fine. But if you opened a form, saved it, and then went back a couple of days later and then submitted it, it would take the submit date as the instance created date rather than the date that you initially opened and saved the form. So we fixed that. There was an issue where parameters were not being transmitted from forms, like form field parameters, back to a business value. Fixed that. Some various display and bootstrap issues. We don't need to go into the details of that, but we are fixing a lot of display and CSS issues, and we're also working very heavily on accessibility, because many of our higher ed customers are facing a hard deadline on 26 March to be sure that all of their forms that they show to end users are accessible. So we are working our way through that. So if you have accessibility issues, especially if you're a higher ed client, please submit tech support tickets on that so that I can send them directly to the engineering team so that they can address that. We are as keen to meet that April 26th deadline as you are. So we are still getting a couple. I think we went through a big process of getting rid of these display and bootstrap and accessibility issues done near the end of last year. As that deadline draws close, we're getting a couple of more trickle in, and if you have some, please report them. Some weird things like impersonating a user would force that user to log out. The user references page, for some reason, it just wasn't working, and it wasn't providing any user references. Now it is. A weird chart series ordering on export. The in order property of a chart on export to order the chart series wasn't importing. That has been fixed. There's some form locking behavior. It wasn't working as designed. We fixed that. a super weird one with embedded section errors where sometimes if you change the name, it would show up as two controls with the same name, one marked for deletion and one not. There was just something wonky happening I'd never seen before, but we figured what it was and fixed that. Session tracking loss, process director kind of forget who you are and force you to log out. And K-view filters. If you were using the does not contain operators, it was, I forget what the exact problem was. It was either excluding items that it should not have excluded, or it was including items that it should have, or including items that it should have excluded. It was doing one of those two things, but it is not doing either of those things now. All right, well, we have reached the end, and it is 10:30, so everything is ending on time. Doesn't appear that anybody else has any questions, so with that, I will say have a great month. For those of you who attend the training webinar, I'll see you on Thursday. For the rest of you, I'll see you next month. So long.